Budget 2025. Hello and welcome. My name is Shruti Sarkar and you are watching Good Returns. Future Focus Budget 2025 के इस episode में we are going to talk about startups. From corporate sector to education sector to capex to GDP, everything seems so important right before the budget. And today we have a special guest, Lakshmi Kunnath, founder, Ardra Organics. Hello, Lakshmi.
Hi, Shruti.
Hi. My very first question to you is, do you expect any kind of tax benefits for the startup sector in the upcoming budget 2025?
So, Shruti, let me just give you a brief background about myself and also about Ardra Organics.
Sure.
So, I'm a chartered accountant who was with the corporate world for almost 18 plus years. Variety of industries from banking to healthcare sector to consumer durables and IT. So from that, I took a leap jump to something which is very, very different from what I've done in the past, which is sustainable organic farming. Right. So we founded Ardra Organics close to 10 years back, where we had taken a barren land and we started converting that land into organic farming land. So the process was quite a big learning curve for us, not something that we had done in the past. And through the process of converting this land, we understood what is the value of sustainable farming. So my focus for the budget, also the discussion that I would like to focus is what the government can do in terms of sustainable farming. So today what we are seeing, budget allocation does happen. I mean, there's a big focus on agriculture and agricultural produce. To what extent can we have specific budget allocation for sustainable organic farming? That is going to be my focus. The first area that I would want to emphasize is on water conservation. Now, we know that there are different ways of water optimization that happens today, and budget allocation happens towards the optimization part, which is when water is actually present in your land. Then how do you optimize it through drip irrigation and spray irrigation and different other means of optimizing the water usage. But what I want to focus is what I want the budget to have specific allocation is on water conservation. What happens when your water tables are depleting year on year? And this is a classic issue that we are facing for not just in Karnataka, which is where our primary land focus is, but across. It's across the states. So what is that the government can do as a spending towards water conservation? Now, when I'm talking about water conservation, we know India is a land which has vagaries of monsoons. It's either huge floods or it's drought, and a lot of farmer suicides happens due to drought. So one thing is, when there is rain, when there are rains happening, how do we conserve this water? What kind of rainwater harvesting systems and processes can we put in place in and around villages? And for those systems to be placed, there should be specific grants and schemes that is allocated by the budget, which is focused on improving the water tables in each of these regions. So that is one area that I would definitely want budget 2025 to focus on.
Right. Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Sustainability, net zero, carbon emissions. I think the budget will focus in these areas, and also the EV sector. Moving on, say apart from the expected tax benefits for the startup sector, what is your overall expectations? Let's address the elephant in the room, probably tax relief for common man or some kind of tax benefits for MSMEs. What is your expectation?
If I may add, another big area that we think we should be focusing with respect to agri is agricultural infrastructure. So when I'm saying agricultural infrastructure, there are two parts to it. One is the physical infrastructure, referring to the warehouses and the logistics that can be provided for marginal farmers. There could be central depositories or warehouses that can have focus. Now, if I have to take my classic example, today I sometimes need to do a distress sale of my produce because there is not enough storage or the adequate techniques that is required to store my product, and therefore I'm forced to sell it at a distress. But if there was adequate warehousing and cold storage facilities at certain central depositories or regions that is there available, which I could make use of at a subsidized rate, then the time to market is something that I could actually increase and could have a stable income in terms of agricultural produce. Now, this just does not apply to me, but across all farmers or marginal farmers that are there in the country. And the second part of it is the digital infrastructure. Today, India boasts of digital infrastructure in terms of UPI and the ONDC platform. So how can we have certain grants or schemes that is focused on leveraging the ONDC platform itself, where it connects farmers directly to the consumers? We do have e-commerce players, but if the government itself can intervene there and then produce some kind of a platform which integrates both ends from farming to the end users. So if there can be certain specific schemes from the budget, now that would be a big area of input that we could expect from the budget. Now, the third area is around agricultural universities. Now, we visit as a part of our business to a lot of agricultural universities to learn the processes and see what we could do in terms of sustainable farming. So one input is that while a lot of inputs we get with respect to use of pesticides and chemical farming, there's not much that we get inputs in terms of sustainable farming. So if could be certain grants given for test pilots around agricultural sustainable farming and organic farming methods, traditional farming methods, that's another big input that we could expect from budget, because I think there should be definitely a big focus towards agricultural produce. 70% of our economy previously was in agriculture. So that is something that we need to revive, and we need to revive for a better way.
Absolutely. It's a cycle, it's not only, expectations are not only for startups. Then there is agricultural sector for farmers, for MSMEs. So a lot is going on. There are market expectations. In fact, in our Good Returns exclusive polls, where we spoke to market experts from various sectors, they said that green energy, sustainability, these are very important for future. I know we have our net zero target until, the target is 2070, and it's quite far off compared to the European countries or the US. But I think it's time that we take this very, very seriously. Moving on, Lakshmi, apart from this, what is your overall expectations from the budget? Say, any tax relief for the common man, for the salaried sector? Because we are all, looking forward to some kind of relief, especially for, the talk is that people whose income level is more than 15 lakhs will probably get some kind of relief. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So definitely, I think this is one of the biggest hot topic that everybody discusses on. Tax reliefs for the middle income group, or even I wouldn't just limit it to the middle income group. I think the disparity between corporate taxes and personal income tax in India is really, really big. If you see, it's anywhere from 35% to it goes up to 42% at very high slabs if you include cess and surcharge, right? So, and whereas corporate taxes at 25%. So the disparity is really huge. So the expectation of, I think, across everyone in the country is that there would be tax reliefs. And I would believe that there should be no taxes on personal income for any household which has income less than 10 lakhs per annum. I mean, just think of it. You're talking about a family of four living in an urban city. The kind of expenses, cost of living and EMIs that they have to pay, the household expenses that they have to pay, fuel, petrol cost, everything is on a rise. And the cost of inflation, inflation is only on the rise. You see the real inflation is pretty much on the rise when you look at food prices going up or any of the household consumers going up. So given, and schooling, of course, schooling and healthcare, that's another, there's another aspect to it. So given that the costs are skyrocketing across the roof, so definitely there calls for a tax relief, because people are not able to save. Today, if you see, leave alone saving, people are not even able to do a discretionary spend. Now, we do talk about salted caramel popcorns and caramel popcorns, but if only people visit the cinema houses, would they be able to spend on that, right?
True,
so
absolutely.
Even if you have to spend, if a family of four has to spend towards going for a movie night out, people think twice. Really, you have to think twice when you're looking at an average. The household which has income less than 10 lakhs should not be taxed at all. That is the first thing. There should be a revision in the tax structures for even 15 lakhs and above, say 15 lakhs to say 25 lakhs. I think we should look forward to some relief that is coming in those slabs. Maybe there should be a structural reform in terms of the number of slabs itself, and also look at reliefs across the board for the different slabs that is there today in terms of income tax. That is
Right.
one part of it. The second is interest on FDs. Now, FDs that you earn is the rate of interest on FDs is very, very less. It's 5 to 6% on an average. If I'm saying a tenure of, say, 12 to 24 months. But when you are having your interest income itself so less, a tax levied on that on the slab rates, it further deteriorates your interest in actually putting in FDs, right? So how will the government encourage people to save when the return on those return instruments are very, very less? So there should be some kind of a reform also on the interest on FDs. Next big thing that happened last time was long-term capital gains.
Oh my God.
Given given India is not a country where there are a lot number of social security schemes, one area where people really look forward to is creating some amount of wealth for your retirement at least is through the markets. Now, that being a considerably big source of income, and where I think today equity is a game where a lot of retail investors are entering the market, right? Previously, that was not the case. So, I think the government should do something to increase this impetus that people are showing towards the primary markets and the secondary markets. So, we definitely look forward to a couple of changes there. One is on the indexation coming back. Cost of inflation is across, be it for your household consumables or your immovable property. So a need is definitely required to be taken care of the cost of inflation, and therefore indexation, we propose that it comes back for this
Right.
turn. And
Anything?
also the long-term capital gains on securities, if they can be reworked on,
Right.
because there is a cost to the patience that we have over the time that we have put in. So we are looking at some kind of changes, structural changes there as well.
Sure. Lakshmi, you spoke about cost of living, very, very topical thing. And not only for urban, the thing is, there are several things linked. You also spoke about FD. So let's talk a little bit on the macro side. Now, we have the last GDP numbers were quite bad, 5.4%. Inflation is on the rise. It's over 5%. And I think due to this is also driven by food inflation, where probably in an urban sector where we have salaried people, they could probably still go and buy groceries in a very higher cost, yes. But I want to know more about the rural economy. We want to talk about that. That you rightly said that if we are getting if we want to invest in FDs and the interest that we earn back is so less, then how do we save? And then if we go and invest in risky assets, as in the stock market, I was just speaking with a few fund managers, and they're extremely cautious now that we don't know. We don't want to talk about capital gains, and we definitely don't want to talk about GST, is what they said. We are very cautious, and you would see a lot of volatility happening in the stock market in the past few days. Because they don't know, they're all booking profits. So GDP, the growth is slowing, and inflation is on the rise. We have a RBI monetary policy meeting in Feb first week, and the expectations are that the repo rate will be unchanged at 6.5%. Now, our Prime Minister Narendra Modi always speaks about Viksit Bharat. I just wanted to know your view that with all these scenarios, and obviously we have external risks too. For example, we never know that when and where US President Donald Trump will put tariffs on. Right now the focus is on China and Russia and Canada, but we never know, right? So what's your take on overall growth, and do you think that India will become a developed country by 2047? Overall macro tech.
Yeah. So I think you put it very well, Shruti. I mean, we have very big plans. At least our Prime Minister has very big plans for India, where we target growth to $40 trillion economy by 2027, which is almost 11% CAGR growth if we actually see from today till 2047. Now, if we need to attain that kind of a growth, there are a couple of areas that we definitely have to focus on. I think one of the biggest areas is, I mean, today, if the GDP has to grow to that extent, what are some of the interventions that is required? One is the consumption. today you know that there is a slowdown in the economy and consumption is really on the lower side. Now, what do you do to increase consumption from a common man? The first thing is you put more money in the hands of the common man. It can be both in the urban areas and the rural areas. In rural area, one area which we were just debating between some group of friends who were thinking on what would revive the economy to a greater speed is increasing the minimum wages, the Menegra wages that you pay to the wages, you increase it. But that has to be in proportion to the productivity that you're realizing out of it. So when you have this minimum wage increase of which is currently, I think, around 300 per day per labor. It varies across states, but on an average, it varies from 275 to 300 per day. So when you increase that, there should be a contract with each of the labor forces, maybe governed by the rural governing panchayats, where you have employment generated through these Menegra wages to infrastructural projects. So we have big focus on infrastructure. So how are we leveraging the present labor which is present in the country, employing them, giving them money for purchasing power increase, for consumption increase, and also utilizing them for productivity. It should just not be freebies. That's what I'm coming to say. So whatever is being given out should in terms contribute to productivity. So how can we leverage this labor force that is present towards infrastructural projects? That is something that we should be doing. When we're talking about urban economy, then we're talking about tax consumption, how much we can pay back to the consumer today, to the households today, so that they can increase their consumption at a much greater levels. Another thing that I would propose is, can we relook at the excise duties that is being currently levied on fuel? If you see, the fuel cost in India is much higher than when you compare to the global standards. So that definitely is a leverage point, and fuel is just not an input at a household level. It is also an input into the industrial. It's a huge raw material for industrial output. So there are different areas in which one fuel cost reduction will be impacted in giving purchasing power to the common man at different levels. So that is another area that I would look at, how you can increase purchasing power to the households.
Right. Lakshmi, I think we have covered it all. We spoke about rural economy and then the startup, agricultural sector, farmers, consumption, cost of living. Before I let you go, we have a lot of Gen Z viewers, who have just started working, probably a few Gen Alpha viewers who were fresh out of college, and some of the terms may sound very technical to them right now. So if probably you had to say to them that before the budget, what should they probably think about, or what should they focus about, what would that be?
Well, of course, it's budget time, so a lot of discussions are happening around budget. But one key area that I would definitely want them to start looking at is how they could look at wealth creation as a whole, and what should be happening and what should they be doing from their end towards wealth creation. So the participation in the markets, I think participation in the markets is a very key thing, that they should start small, maybe start very small, because they've just started out. So they have a long time ahead of them. So they can go test out the markets, understand how the markets work, and slowly but steadily, I think consistency is key here, slowly but steadily start dipping into the markets and contribute towards the capital markets. I think what is most important is contribution towards the capital markets, how they could fuel the engine of growth by contributing there. I think that would be my key piece of suggestion that I would give to the Gen Z, because budget happens year on year, but this is something that is a lifelong progression.
Absolutely. Well, some really great insights to what is expected in the budget. And thank you so much, Lakshmi, for joining us today. We were speaking with Lakshmi Kunnath, founder, Ardra Organics. Thank you, viewers, for watching us.
Thank you.